What are the things that might occur in the first few weeks after an auto accident, for instance, after you've hired an attorney?
Okay. This is really good to touch on because those first few weeks or maybe the first month of after hiring an attorney, you're not going to really hear a lot from your attorney other than possibly if we're settling your property damage or working with you to get your car out of a shop and get you in a rental car, things like that. But as far as the injury portion, there's not a ton of, I'm not going to say communication, but there's not a lot of movement really because you're still treating most likely as the client and we're also building our case. But during that time, your attorney is going to be communicating with all the parties involved. That may be insurance carriers for the at-fault party, your insurance carrier, other insurance carriers if multiple vehicles are involved. Your attorney is also going to be beginning the investigation and building your case. That would include reaching out to law enforcement agencies to get any evidence they may have, or if we need to employ a private investigator to seek out additional evidence and things like that. So building the case is happening. And then at the same time, kind of running concurrently, will also be ordering medical records. So as the client will clear certain treatment providers, say like an ER, say if they, from the scene of the accident, are taken by ambulance to the emergency room, they're probably not going to go back to the emergency room. They may have now moved on to a specialist or something like that. So we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling, getting those medical records, requested. But I would say most likely in that first month, your attorney's priority is going to be getting you back into your vehicle. Mm-hmm. Okay, that may be getting it repaired, or it may be having it, if it's a total loss, having it evaluated and getting you paid for your property. We all know that transportation is a critical need, and so most of us don't have multiple vehicles and things like that. So that's going to be the first thing we're kind of hitting the ground running, is getting you back into your vehicle so you have a little bit of sense of normalcy in your life, and you're not riding around in a rental car or sometimes, without any vehicle at all. So that's going to be the first month there, is going to be we're building the case, we're getting all the parties involved, making sure that they understand that you're represented and things like that, and then focusing on that property damage.
Yeah, and in terms of client expectations, I'll add a little bit to that. So when someone's first encountering their medical providers, the scope of the treatment starts to become more clear.
Of course.
So when you do go to those specialists and they say, hey, that shoulder that's still bothering you, it looks like you're going to have a surgery. Mm-hmm. Or in other words, when it starts to become clear that the injury may be somewhat severe, require some sort of surgical intervention, or even a lengthy physical therapy, it's important that we know that.
Certainly.
So that we can communicate that to the insurance company right away, because they set the reserves on the case relatively early, a lot sooner than what most people think. Mm-hmm. Or at least they start to do that. They start the valuation immediately. And if the insurance provider doesn't know the severity of the injury, yep, if they're surprised by it at the back end, when that person's finally released from care several months down the road, they may not be able to go back to a supervisor and say, hey, I need an extra, $20,000 on this case because of the severity of it. And so you've basically created a situation where you're probably going to have to litigate that case. So that communication and knowing what's going on with the client right out of the gate is super important, because otherwise it's going to have some repercussions further down the road, which we'll talk about what it means if a case has to be litigated.